Combat is the part of the game that carries the most weight. And even if you know it forwards and backwards and you all know how it works and the rules all make sense and you can make it flow, for most GMs and DMs, it eventually stops being fun. And for the players, it kind of starts feeling like it's just routine. Because in games that combat is so prevalent, and it's become such an integral part of tabletop role-playing games themselves, combat gets boring. And it gets boring fast. But when you realize something, every fight, no matter what is in front of you, ends up playing out exactly the same way every single time. Roll initiative. We take turns. Swing our weapons. We trade damage until something falls. And that's why this is episode 16 of my 20-part campaign mastery series, because every game keeps trying to figure out how to make combat exciting. And every game kind of makes it fail. This episode is so important because if we can get combat right, because it's ingrained in our games, this is what we consider to be fun. Because no matter what game you're playing, they all give us hundreds of monsters to place into our worlds. And each one of them has their own little quirks. One attacks with claws, the other with breathes fire. This one has a special acid attack, and so on. And on the surface, they all look different, and they all kind of feel unique. But once you've been through a few rounds, it settles into the same rhythm. Because underneath the paint jobs, every fight runs the same rails. And it doesn't matter if it's goblins, trolls, dragons, or whatever. We hit it until it falls. We shoot it until it crumbles, or we nuke it with our spells. And by the 10th time, even if the monsters look fresh, the fights feel exactly the same. And that's why everything falls apart. Combat stops feeling dangerous, and it loses its excitement, and it turns predictable and repetitive and, yes, boring. And so we try to fix it by throwing more encounters at the party, stacking monster after monster to make them think and keep them challenged. That's not realistic, and honestly, it's a little bit silly, because anyone who has ever been in a fight, you just don't go to the next boxing ring and then go to the next boxing ring to make it exciting, because fighting hurts. The other fix is, we'll do challenge rating. We'll make sure every fight is balanced. Make sure that the math adds up. This way you will not TPK the party. And you know what? Everyone will walk out as winners. And the problem is it doesn't ever feel like real combat. What is the scariest thing you can think of? For me, it isn't dragons or demons, because I'm smart enough not to go mess with a dragon or a demon. It would be a chimpanzee with an AK-47, because it doesn't matter how strong you think you are or how prepared you think you are. That thing is chaos with a trigger finger. It's smart enough to kill everyone. But no real way to strike up a conversation and reason with it. That's combat. It isn't about balance or endless waves of monsters. It's about that pressure and that danger and momentum. And the fact that a fight right now is like all fights. It's going to cost you something. And if you don't understand that, if you only run the system, you end up with the same hollow loop every time. Chapter 1, the problem. Let's break down the problem so we can go into how games tried to fix it and failed. So what is the problem? Well, it isn't broken rules. The problem is that none of these systems feel like real combat. Combat in reality isn't numbers. It isn't neat or safe. It's chaos. Your heart slams in your chest. You can feel your vision starting to narrow. Decisions aren't calm or planned. They become reactions. And honestly, I really hope that none of you are ever in a fight. And definitely not in combat. And definitely nothing in even remotely realistic. But when the simulation is just dice, all you're figuring out is math. Add a modifier, subtract a penalty, wait for a turn, roll to hit. The rules watered down what combat is, and the danger has been reduced to just arithmetic. Initiative gets framed as speed, but it's just one die roll deciding who goes first. Surprise gets framed as, oh, it's chaos, but it only removes an opening action. Monsters look terrifying, but in play they're just stacks of hit points with different attack names. That's the core problem. Something unpredictable and terrifying and alive has been turned into chutes and ladders where everyone already knows the rules. Once players see that, the fear is gone. The danger's gone. The fight is just another math problem to work through. Combat systems say they're modeling a real fight, but what they're really giving us is math instead of danger. Chaos gets broken into procedure, and the first sign of that breakdown shows up right at the start with initiative and surprise. Chapter 2, Initiative and Surprise. This is where the cracks start to show. Everyone knows the system doesn't feel like real combat, so we reach for a patch. And that patch, the first patch that every game tries to figure out is who goes first. It makes sense on the surface. Real fights are messy, so we add rules to put order into the chaos. We're told initiative is the solution. Lock down turn order. Build a structure. Make sure everyone gets a turn. From there, system after system has spent decades trying to build a better mousetrap. Faster dice, card draws, fixed stat, collaborative choices. Each one claims to solve the problem of flow in combat. But somewhere in that process, we lost sight of what initiative was supposed to represent. And no, it's not fairness or balance. And it isn't a polite line where everyone waits for their turn. Initiative is supposed to carry stakes. And we could spend hours picking apart every system and how they handle it, and why none of them really works. Because no matter how dressed up it is, it always collapses back into math. Cards are still math. Even a conversation system like Daggerheart is math in disguise. Dungeons and Dragons, here we go, the classic. Roll initiative, highest goes first, lowest goes last. On paper, it's fast, efficient, and fair. But in practice, it makes combat feel frozen. One bad roll and suddenly the fastest rogue in the entire world is just standing there while the goblin hacks at him. Not because he hesitated, not because he froze with fear, but because the dice said so. And that's not danger. That's everybody waiting in line at the DMV with swords. Let's look at Savage Worlds. On paper, this feels wild. Every round, cards are dealt. Nobody knows what's coming. The Joker hits in the table and everybody explodes with bonuses. For a round or two, it feels cinematic, like a saloon brawl. Keep playing and the illusion is destroyed. You're not in a fight. You're waiting for a deck of cards to give you permission to act. The unpredictability fades, and it basically becomes just a game of chance. And what is chance? Chance is just math in a mask. The Call of Cthulhu. I can never say that word right. Cthulhu. This system doesn't even bother with dice. It's straight dexterity order. Highest to lowest. Surprise means you lose your first action. It's clean, efficient, and it's perfect for horror on paper. But it doesn't instill fear. You don't freeze because panic locks your body. You freeze because your dex score is too low. You're not shocked and you're not desperate and you're just waiting. You're just waiting and watching numbers. And that's what decides your scene. And finally, let's talk about Daggerheart, the other extreme. There's no dice, there's no stats, there's no cards. Just choose together who goes next. It's supposed to be collaborative, free form. At its best, it flows like a story. But real fights don't stop for a group discussion. They don't pause where everyone goes, let's negotiate. Whoa, you go ahead and go. The urgency vanishes. The initiative turns into scheduling instead of shock. Each one has a different mechanics and each has a different flavor, but they are all chasing the same question. Who goes first? And in chasing it, we've lost what initiative was supposed to give us. The feeling of what it's like when a fight actually begins. Every system tries to answer the same question, who goes first? And no matter how clever the mechanics look, the answer always falls back to some number. You're either first, second, third, fourth, or whatever. And that's where initiative and surprise collapse, which leads us straight into the bigger problem. Why every one of these approaches ends up flat. Chapter 3. Why they fall flat. All of these systems, dice rolls, card draws, stat checks, table talk, are chasing order. They want structure, they want control. But combat isn't orderly and combat isn't controlled. It's the exact opposite. It's panic, tunnel vision, the moment where hesitation could get you killed. And that's why every initiative system feels hollow. Because they don't bring danger, because they can't bring pressure, and they reduce everything to just math. So the question isn't which system runs best. The question is how to put stakes back into the fight, how to make players feel the chaos instead of watching a simulation of it. Because if chaos isn't there, combat always folds into repetition. It doesn't matter whether the opponent is a goblin or a dragon or a demon lord or anything. If the system kills the stakes, every fight runs exactly the same. The challenge isn't building a perfect initiative mechanic. The challenge is creating pressure, making each moment feel like you're touching a live wire. You have to force your players to act before they're ready, which makes every swing cost something. Showing that hesitation carries consequences. That's how you capture that chaos, not with new mechanics, but with stakes. Because every initiative system promises order, but none of them bring danger. And that's why they fall flat. They reduce chaos into procedure, and procedure just doesn't carry any stakes. The fix has to come from somewhere else. Chapter 4, Initiative with Stakes. So if every initiative system falls flat, if they're all just math in disguise, how do we fix it? Well, this is my answer. I call it the stakes engine. Initiative isn't about order. It's about that risk and pressure and about the moment where you either freeze or act. Instead of treating initiative like a bookkeeping, I treat it like the chaos it actually is. And the best part? This works on top of any system. And it doesn't matter if you're rolling dice in D&D, flipping cards in Savage World, checking stats, or talking it out in Daggerheart. The mechanics don't matter. The stakes engine cuts through all of them. So here it is. Part A, declarations. When combat starts, I roll initiative. I do it behind the screen. That way players only know something is happening because I've rolled. If they're paying attention, they roll too. If they don't, they're caught flat-footed, staring at the story instead of reacting to it. Then I go around the table at random and ask each player what they do. No long speeches, no table chatter, 2 or 3 words max. Action, movement, that's it. Fireball, still. Notched arrow, still. Attack, run forward. If they don't have a declaration, they are again caught flat-footed. And this works no matter what system you're in, because the second you give players time to talk it out, the danger disappears. They'll plan the fight. They'll weigh their options. They'll polish their moves. And this kills the urgency. Forcing snap declaration makes the fight feel real. They're reacting instead of solving the equations. Which brings us to part B, accountability. Once I have the declarations, I test them against reality. The wizard who said, fireball, still. Do they have the components ready? If not, the fireball doesn't do anything. The spell fizzles. The archer who said, notch arrow, still. Okay, they didn't move and they notched an arrow. Do they actually know how many arrows are left? If not, they come up empty. 12 arrows means no thought required. But if you only have 2, that means that every shot has to be deliberate. The rogue who said attack. Did they ever draw their blade when they entered the dungeon? If not, they're charging in barehanded. They're going to do fisticuffs. It doesn't matter what game you're running. The principle holds. If a player wasn't prepared, if they didn't say it, if they assumed the system would smooth it over, it doesn't. This process punishes hesitation. Only after this do I reveal the initiative order I rolled behind the screen. Now the system takes over again, dice, cards, stats, whatever. But the action is already colliding. The chaos is already alive, and that initiative is now given some stakes. And it's not just order of 1, 2, 3 or math, but it now becomes pure chaos, pressure, and consequences. Players don't get time to talk their way out of danger. They don't get to polish their perfect move. And if they stall, the fight moves on without them. When the round is over, we start again. The next time, they're ready. Just like it's a real fight. And this also wipes out the habit of, oh, I'm going to change my action because someone else went first. Okay. Some of you are going to argue that players will just get better at responding. Yes, that's the point. In a real fight, whether it's a firefight or a fist fight, fear doesn't ever disappear. It does change. The more experience you have, the faster reaction time gets, the more prepared you are. But the fear still climbs too, because now you know what it feels like and what it might cost. You know what it's like to take a hit and wake up the next day beaten and sore, even if you won. I've had my nose broken 7 times. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not looking forward to number 8. Readiness makes you quicker, but it also reminds you exactly what tomorrow is going to feel like. And that's where we move next, because combat isn't just about who acts first. It's about what those actions cost. Chapter 5, Hit Points, Damage, and Tension. Now we get to the heart of it, at least the fun part. Hit points, damage, the lifeblood of combat. And most of us run it wrong. We treat hit points like a video game health bar. Take damage, subtract the number, wait for it to hit 0. That isn't tension, that's bookkeeping. So how do you make hit points dangerous again? Well, to start, let's keep the numbers hidden. Don't tell the players how much damage the monster takes. Don't ever announce, you hit or you miss. Have them roll their damage every round, no matter what. Because in a real fight, you don't know if that last swing broke bone or just glanced off. You don't know how close your enemy is to dropping. All you feel is fatigue, blood, and pain. Run it that way. Describe the fight and what happens, not numbers. If your player lands a heavy blow, don't say, you hit for 12 points of damage. Say, your blade smashes into the orc's rib, the breath rips out of his chest in a ragged wheeze. And if an enemy attacks, hits, that doesn't have to mean the arrow buried itself in flesh. The damage might come from a scramble to avoid it. Maybe they dive aside and slam to the ground hard enough to knock the wind out of themselves. Maybe they twist away too fast and tear something in their shoulder. The arrow missed, but the cost of surviving still drains them. And that's where those hit points go. Hit points aren't just cuts and wounds. They're fatigue, close call, bruises, the toll of keeping yourself alive another second. As an example, swing a bat against a concrete wall and feel the shock tear through your arms, and then try to hit a ball. That's hit points. Every block, every scrape, every desperate breath is a little more ground lost. Set thresholds behind the screen to help you pace it. So maybe at 90% you describe labored breath if they've lost it. Maybe they're at 50% lost, they have trembling hands, you tell them their defense is breaking. At 10% they're fighting on desperation alone. And here's the part most DMs never try. Keep your players' hit points behind the screen also. Don't let them know exactly how much damage they've taken. Let them wonder. Never give them the whole picture. Make the fight uncertain. Make their injuries feel real. Let them carry that weight and feel the chaos. Never show the number. Never say hit or miss again. Your dice are tools. They are not the game. The story is what sticks. Combat should never be about math. Combat is consequences. It's ribs cracking, arrows grazing, blades catching, lungs burning. It's every moment carrying the weight that it could be the very last one that breaks you. Run hit points like that and nobody at the table will ever know if they're winning or losing. Every roll feels like it might be the last one they ever roll. Running it this way puts danger back into the fight. When players stop thinking about math and they start worrying about what their character can survive. But numbers aren't the only thing that flatten combat. Time does too. Because every fight burns more than flesh. Numbers aren't the story. They never were. Hit points only matter when they feel like something is real, like fatigue, bruises, close calls. That's the next step, because combat isn't just subtraction. It's how you show it. The way you describe a fight should not just let them imagine swinging a sword. It should place them inside the storm of pure chaos. Chapter 6, Description and the Dance of Combat. Saying you take 2 points of damage is the fastest way to drain the life out of a fight. Numbers don't make people lean forward. Images do. Combat isn't just a sword swinging, landing, or missing. It's everything that happens in between. The parry that jars your arm and the bone. The feint that buys a heartbeat of space. The stumble that leaves you wide open.
Ho! Ha! Guard! Turn! Parry! Dodge! Spin! Ha! Thrust!
Every blow carries more than just math. It carries movement, fatigue, desperation. And this is where we circle back to what we talked about in the last video. Kuntz, King, and Barker. Each of them gives you a different lens to bring combat to life. Kuntz is about surface description. The goblin's dagger flashes in the firelight quicker and sharper as broken glass. King gives you the familiar, the weight of reality. The shield takes the hit and your arm goes numb, just like you slammed it into a brick wall. Barker pushes into the grotesque. The spear rips past your ribs, tearing cloth and skin with a sound like wet parchment splitting. You don't need all three every time, but when you mix them into combat, suddenly it's not just math. Maybe use them as your percentage thresholds. If players take damage, don't say you lose 6 points. Say the goblin's blade breaks across your shield arm. Or maybe you block and the shock travels up your shoulder and you feel your grip falter. If you avoid damage, don't call it a miss. Show the cost. The spear whistles past your ribs so close it tears your cloak. You twist to avoid it and nearly lose your footing. Make every exchange a little story of its own, but with moderation. Not a blow-by-blow novel, not endless detail, but a rhythm. Maybe an attack on this one, a dodge on that one, a feint, a twist, a counter. Give the information, but don't bombard them. Give combat texture players can feel, because when they see the fight in their minds, the dice stop being the focus. The scene does. And that's where combat stops being mechanical and starts being a story of not something you solved, but something you survived. Every movement, every moment feels like it should matter, and every roll shifts the flow of the fight. It's no longer my turn, your turn. It becomes a struggle, a dance, a storm, and they're trapped inside. And that's what makes them remember it way longer than just those numbers and what they rolled. Chapter 7, Time, Scarcity, and After Combat. Combat isn't just about wounds, it's about how long you can keep going. Every second of fight costs something. You're breathing harder, your muscles give out, your nerves are shaking. In game terms, we often forget that while swords are swinging, the clock is still ticking by. A fight that drags on isn't just another round, it's a drain on food, water, spells, and your stamina. Most of us don't track this. We let players walk out of a 10-minute battle as if it happened in a vacuum. You don't believe how difficult it is to do combat? Punch a punching bag for 5 minutes and see how you do on minute 2. It's exhausting. But because real combat eats resources, and it burns calories, and it dries your throat, and it leaves bodies wrecked from the adrenaline dump alone. Even if nobody dropped to 0. But everyone should still feel the cost. What did the battle cost? After the fight, this is where you tell your players how much hit points they lost. Make it a big reveal. And that's how you tie scarcity into the fight. Track time, account for the noise. Count what it does to their rations, their torches, their breath. Every round is another notch in the belt of exhaustion. Maybe one fight means that they're burned through a day's worth of food and water. Maybe it means the cleric doesn't have the focus left to pray. However you model it, combat should leave a mark outside of just wounds. It also needs to affect the environment. The smells, the blood, the noise, it has to play a factor. Think of a shark's ability to detect blood in the water. Think about how to raise the stakes in a world by the actions of what is going on around you. If your game is just axe and smash, followed by short rest and long rest, then the fight didn't really mean anything beyond the loot. Because if combat costs nothing but healing magic, it stops being dangerous. The fight itself should make players think about what's left in their pack, what's running out, and what tomorrow is going to feel like. Conclusion: combat should never feel safe. If your players know exactly how many swings it takes to drop an enemy, if they know exactly how much time they've got before the danger passes, then you've lost the point. The fight has to feel sharp. It has to feel like every move could cost them more than what they're really willing to give up. And that's what we've been building towards. Taking combat out of the neat little box of arithmetic and math, and we're throwing it back into chaos. Now, granted, it's not chaos without shape, but the kind that makes people sweat, second guess, and feel the weight of what they're actually risking. Because when the fight feels real, your story feels real. Here's my challenge to each and every one of you. Run your next combat this way. Keep the numbers hidden. Track the cost in breath, blood, and what tomorrow will feel like. Make them wonder if they're winning or losing, and never let them be sure until the last die hits the table. See how different the energy is when the players stop solving the equations and just start reacting to the danger. Because this isn't just about a better fight. It's about momentum. It's about driving the story forward with the same pressure and the same uncertainty and the same consequences that make real combat matter. And that's where we're going to go next, into those questions. Because if combat pushes the story forward through its danger, then the right questions are what open the story wider. Questions your players should be asking, and the questions you, as the DM and GM, should be ready to answer. In the quiet after steel and fire, the fluffy spawn creep out of the dark. Their voices are soft, their stories sharper than claws. They remember the fight above, the fear, the chaos, the price of survival. And the warm below waits, silent, endless, hungry. A place where every step is a question, and every question has teeth.